Hello, and welcome to The Bard's Truth with your host, the Green Bard. This is the Direwolves of Winterfell, episode 6-17, Epilogue, Jon's Second and Third Life. Now that we've covered all the interactions with Ghost in the published books, we'll turn to what everyone seems to think will happen next in the forthcoming The Winds of Winter, Jon starting his second life inside Ghost, before eventually being resurrected back into his own body, which I'm calling his third life. It is foreshadowed in Melisandre's POV. His long face floated before her, lined in tongues of red and orange, appearing and disappearing again, a shadow half seen behind a fluttering curtain. Now he was a man, now a wolf, now a man again. But the skulls were here as well. The skulls were all around him. A Dance with Dragons, Melisandre 1. So Mel says he'll be a man, then a wolf, then a man again. I, like many, think that passage, combined with the information about the second life from Varamir's prologue chapter in A Dance with Dragons, hint that Jon's becoming a wolf happens when he speaks the name Ghost, while his body is dying in his final POV chapter, from the prologue. Hagen's rough voice echoed in his head. You will die a dozen deaths, boy, and everyone will hurt. But when your true death comes, you will live again. The second life is simpler and sweeter, they say. And then later, Varamir could feel the snowflakes melting on his brow. This is not so bad as burning. Let me sleep and never wake. Let me begin my second life. His wolves were close now. He could feel them. He would leave his feeble flesh behind, becoming one with them, hunting the night and howling at the moon. The Warg would become a true wolf. There is one other thing that ties the passages of Jon's and Varamir's deaths. In the prologue, as Varamir leaves his body, he was rising, melting, his spirit borne on some cold wind. This seems a parallel to the last line of Jon's story, as he presumably also leaves his body, when, as he's stabbed for the fourth time, he doesn't feel it. Only the cold. If you didn't catch that, the cold is what their deaths have in common as they leave their bodies. We also see a parallel in Jon and Robb's deaths, where both speak their wolves' names in their last words. Again, I consider the use of the wolves' names to be evidence that they are about to spend their second life in those wolves. While Robb's second life would have been very short since Grey Wind was immediately killed, Jon's soul will travel into Ghost, where he will presumably remain for quite a while before eventually being resurrected. There are myriad ideas as to how he is resurrected and what he will be like afterward. Some think he will be changed a lot, like how Lady Stoneheart is only a shadow of her former self after Beric brings her back. Other people think that his magical inheritance will cause him to transform into a more magical being, sort of a level up, to use gaming jargon. Some also think he'll be more wolfish. I believe more in the latter two ideas to a certain extent. We know from our study of Bran and Summer that extended periods of time in the wolf help the Warg to embrace the magic, but also to think more like a wolf. I think Jon will embrace Ghost's thought patterns more after his extended stay inside his direwolf, but I think that being inside of Ghost, a strong and stable vessel, will allow Jon's consciousness to remain strong and whole. By contrast, Catelyn's consciousness would have floundered and atrophied for 3 days without a suitable vessel to hold it. See my tinfoil about how she might have flitted in and out of the local trout population before Nymeria dragged her from the Green Fork. I'll also note in the Farseer series by Robin Hobb, a fantasy author that George R.R. Martin greatly admires. Spoiler alert, you may want to mute if you don't want that series spoiled. The icon will disappear once it's safe. In that book, there is a similar resurrection to the one expected for Jon. After spending several days inside his wolf, the character is returned to his body, which had been buried earlier that day, disinterred the same night by allies. In the book, it takes the hero many months to feel again like a human, and he was never the same. Jon may experience something similar. I do think that Jon will pay some price for his initial death in any case. He will certainly not be the exact same character upon return to his body. Perhaps his body will also have some debilitating issues. We know that cold whites and fire whites don't really have flowing blood, so they don't even respire like humans. It is my firm hope that Jon's body will be something more than this after his resurrection, truly a living body, something restored of his lost blood, flowing again. The only mechanism for this is transfusion in the real world, but perhaps in a fantasy world, blood sacrifice may suffice. After his body is warmed following being frozen quickly upon his death, cold preserves, as we know. All of this is potentially feasible. The stab wound to the gut sure is a problem, though. Whew. Maybe he got lucky and nothing critical was punctured? On the concept of using blood sacrifice to save a person's body, we do have one scene in the series that serves as an example of the body being resurrected using blood sacrifice. That of Khal Drogo at the hands of Mirri Maz Duur. While the Khal's consciousness was not preserved, purposefully, in my opinion, when she knowingly killed the vessel for his second life, the Red Stallion. We must remember his body was preserved, though, so perhaps Mel learned the same tricks in Asshai as Mirri did, and she can use them to revive Jon. See more of my thoughts on Mirri and the Call in my Primer on Zombies video. Setting that aside, there is also the complication of whether it is possible for Jon's soul to escape Ghost's body back into his own. I believe that our study of Ghost and his actions throughout the story give some pretty good clues to that, but first, let's study Varamir's thoughts related to this concept. He thinks his second life will be the limit, that once he goes into that vessel, he'll die for real once it dies. Note that the vessel Varamir finally goes into is his wolf One Eye. But prior to that, he tries to take over the body of the wildling woman Thistle. While it would be cool for a skin changer to flip from one body to the next, and then the next, endlessly, I think our author has set bounds to limit this from happening, save for in a few special cases. The key passage to understanding that limit to second lives is when Varamir contemplates taking Thistle's body. His gift would perish with his body, he expected. He would lose his wolves and live out the rest of his days as some scrawny, warty woman, but he would live. Note that he explicitly ties the gift, his ability to skin change, to his own body and, by extension, to the flesh of the vessel, not to his consciousness. Well, that makes me think, what if, in cases where the skin changer starts their second life in a body that also has the gift, that a third life is possible? In Jon's case, his third life would be in his own resurrected body, after having spent a short second life inside Ghost. Some in the fandom, like David Lightbringer, suggest that Ghost needs to be sacrificed for Jon to escape the vessel of Ghost's body. I firmly reject this. Nor do I expect it, although I wouldn't put it past the author to have Mel do this misguidedly, tragically, and ironically. I believe I've made a very strong case in this series that Ghost himself possesses a body that has, in Varamir's terms, the gift, or in Mel's terms, king's blood. Ghost is more than just a direwolf. He is a creature of magic. The red eyes give it away. The telepathic communication at his first contact with Jon gives it away. And myriad other examples we have covered give it away. That's right. One of the keys to Jon becoming a wolf, then going back into the man, is that Ghost is the equivalent of a Greenseer direwolf. Jon can jump back into his own body using Ghost's gift. I've been working toward this moment through 6 essays, 124,829 words to tell you this one thing, that Jon can have a third life because he is living his second life in the telepathically gifted Ghost, who is capable of his own second life. Sorry about that, I dropped my mic. Now, that was not the only reason I wrote all these essays, and it certainly was not the only thing I've learned about dire wolves and skin changing while on this exploration. I know some things. But to prove that Ghost has a Greenseer level of a magical gift was the most important part of this whole adventure. I think that we've learned that Ghost is definitely much more capable than his siblings, with the possible exception of Shaggy, for whom we have such limited information. As to my hypothesis that it's because of his red eyes, I can say that it was either a genetic gift tied to his eye color or a genetic gift that is tied to him being an albino, We don't have enough information to discern between those two genetic causes. Either way, we've proven Ghost can communicate telepathically much more strongly than Summer or Nymeria, for instance. I think the evidence shows he can reach out telepathically to humans in the same way that human skin changers can reach out telepathically to other beasts. While Bran and Summer's bond is currently the strongest pair studied, seemingly because of Bran's gift being much stronger, Ghost's power leaves open the potential for his bond to Jon to eventually rival Bran and Summer's as the story continues to develop, although Summer may not last much longer. Other than Ghost's telepathic gift being stronger, he exhibits all the same direwolf themes as the others: mirroring, shadowing, obedience, ferocity, and inspiring fear. Bad things happening when he's away from his Stark, and affection when near. Specific to Ghost, we saw his theme of silence over and over again, and some evidence that he may be prone to manipulation by third parties. The only thing that is left to discuss in this episode is to contemplate how Jon will be resurrected. The fandom has various theories on this. Most probably think Melisandre will resurrect him in one way or another. Some have suggested that the others also might be part of reanimating him as a cold white. Some think Bran or someone might be part of it. I can't be sure, but since I want Jon to have flowing blood, I favor anything that would make that possible. Probably the blood sacrifice I suggested earlier. And with that, we're done with the Direwolves of Winterfell. What else is coming for the Green Bard? Well, I do have more direwolf covers coming. Plus, I'll finish my series on Dany and her dragons, of course. I'll also continue my King's Blood series, focusing on Targaryens, given the advent of the HBO series House of the Dragon. Speaking of, I'll probably start covering that series too. Then, I also have some more tinfoil and music percolating. Watch out for it. Thanks to everyone who has been helping me along the way, including artists, family, and other YouTubers and members of the fandom. Please subscribe to me here and on Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, Google+, MySpace, Friendster, Bobzilla BBS, or wherever you get your social media. If you really like my work, please consider joining my Patreon supporters. Peace.
The sword of the morning rise, songs of love, her bell I'd ring, in the window my lies she'd sing. It's so lonely neath the shade of the walls so high. It's so lonely neath the shade of the walls so high.